I'll let you guys do that back there. All right, so before I go back to the board, I did want to talk about maybe some stuff I do like even before, like I get into a rehearsal or, and just kind of like the relationship I have with, well, I'm a musician too, so like when I think of as a musician, my relationship to the tech, and as a tech, my relationship to the musicians. So I know as a musician, it's like an art. You're trying to evoke some emotion with the arrangements and things like that. And so as a tech, I would like to learn like what that is. So, and I want to give that to them. I want to kind of give a good representation of like what they're doing like out into the PA. So just kind of building that relationship over time. So if you get to serve with the same band, that's always helpful. But if not, it's always fun to learn all different people, how they do things, how they tend to do things. Like, but it's also like learning how to, on both sides, to improve. So like being humble about it, but like giving feedback to each other. So I think a lot of the things like I've seen in the past and I've had to learn to do is like a lot of times we don't communicate like front and back. I've been, over the years I've learned to do that more and just be a little bit more, as a tech, being a little bit more like, waiting for a moment, but like, hey, like, I think are you trying to do this? Asking, just kind of clarifying so we understand like we're doing, because a lot of times, again, you don't maybe do sound for the same band, or it's just new for you. So it's okay to ask those questions, and I think, and if you're a musician, like to communicate, to your tech, like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking of, or maybe even sending arrangements, ahead of time to your techs too. So like, this is what we're going for. So, because as a musician, we learn the parts. We try to learn the parts before we get to rehearsal. And as a tech, I love listening to the arrangements too. So I'll listen to the arrangements, like during the week if I have them. You say, okay, this is what they're going for, so I understand like what's going on. When you're preparing, you can look in Planning Center. You guys probably use Planning Center, so you can kind of see like, oh, what are the songs, who's playing, and you can think about like this, your stage seems really nicely laid out, so good job, David. But like if you need to position anything differently, or you have an extra thing that's out of the ordinary, then you can kind of think, oh, where am I going to put that? And why I like to think about those things, again, like I have kind of a lot of time to do that beforehand if I know what the arrangements are and who's playing, so I'm not like stressed on like rehearsal day and on Sunday morning. So I like to do that, I think about it. Because I just like to think about where instruments are and where people are, where microphones are, just so that if you can't capture the source well, then you can't get a good sound out. So the main concern these days, most things are just plugged in. You don't have acoustic piano, you have a keyboard, so those are easy. But it's these microphones, right? So you have vocal microphones, and you just want to make sure. Like I just give a quick tip on this physical level is you guys did a great job of it. This morning, when I was looking, I was like, oh, cool. So what you want to make sure is like these mics are pointed at the singer's mouth, but the thing is, it can be pointed in multiple different ways. You can point it this way, and it's still pointed at my mouth. It can be pointed this way, and it's still pointed at my mouth, right? But the other trick I've been telling people is like, make sure you point this side at the mouth, and this side, like it should also be pointing at something, and it should be pointed at the thing that you want to not pick up. Usually it's the audience, or like if there's like another speaker making sound, you're pointing it that way. So this is good because it's pointed at the stage. So because I would say something that's bad is, and it's also not pointed, like it's pointed at me directly, but even if I'm singing like this, it'll pick me up. But then like if there's like a person behind me standing here, or even here now, like it's gonna pick up things over here because it'll pick up. So just point it. I would say like that's how I point it at the thing, and then point it at the thing you want to not pick up. So just you'll notice that, and again, it's a communication thing. So like if you see your singer adjust something, or they're just standing really far away, like just give them a gentle nudge and be like, hey, stand forward, and then we can get it. So communicating with your band is really important, and I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure how, but like at our church, it's like. It's hard. It's like sometimes like the techs don't want to say anything. They don't want to they don't want to bother the musicians. But I'm like, it's okay if like because they know that's the point. Like we want to help you as a musicians get what you think it's going to sound like out, and we can't help you if some of these things aren't being picked up properly. So that's just kind of the start on this level, and then we'll go back there. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Cool. All right. All right, so if you've done your prep and you're at rehearsal, at the beginning of rehearsal, I really recommend, and I always tell people, you always should do a sound check. And I have found that like always do it the same way too. So when I'm doing a sound check, I just want to make sure I'm checking what we call the gain coming into the board for every channel that we're trying to capture, so every source of sound that we're trying to capture. We want to set the gain properly. So I think, does anyone not know what the gain is? It's okay if you don't. Yeah, okay. I think this one's really important because I think it's the first step. I think I want to make sure like it's kind of simple, but it's very important to just get right. So gain is a way it's like the way for the soundboard to equalize like the input volume of every source. So I could be talking like this, but David could talk louder or sing louder. So this gain it's like, the analogy we use is like a water pipe. And so the source of water is the sound. So like me or like a guitar, right? So you have those. And they just give a stream of water depending on what it is. Like someone can play really loud, so there's a big stream of water. But before it gets to the mixer, there is like a valve, and it's closed. It's completely closed. And so that water is just hitting it, and nothing's coming into the board. So as you slowly open that valve, then that sound will come in. If it's a really big stream of water, you'd only need to open up a little bit and a lot of water will come in. Like, it'll be a steady stream. But if it's like a quieter signal, you might need to open that up more. So we turn up the gain more, so it kind of lets more of that sound come in. And that's the first step of getting it in. So this is really important to do that. So how I usually run a sound check, like the first thing, the musicians are all plugged in and ready to go, is I will work my way pretty much left to right on the channels, and it's generally set up like this, where it's kind of generally low frequency things like drums, and then to the higher frequency things, and then all the way to the vocals, right? So how I would do that is I would ask like, and you can loop it, so let me just turn all this. So I would turn everything down first, okay? Turn everything down. And you guys have a really nice setup here. So I have this main, the LR fader. So this main one is up all the way at 0. And then we have these other ones that are called DCAs, and they're drums, instruments, and vocals. So if I'm starting with the drums, I'll unmute the drums and turn that one up. And then I'll ask. So usually I'll talk into like an intercom. So you guys have this intercom system here on this live mix. If they have their ears, I'll talk into them and be like, hey, drummer, can you play your kick? And just ask for a steady kick, and just have them keep doing it. And then we'll take a look. So we'll select the kick channel here. I'm just hitting this select button on the kick channel, and it's kicking. And then I can solo it. But what I like to do too is hit this. So we're looking at this configuration preamp section. I'm gonna hit view here. So this screen changes. And as it's kicking, you can see this meter right here, this input section. So you say, oh, this is what's coming in. So if I turn this down, I'm basically closing that valve. And even though I'm closing that valve, it's like, oh, it's still loud enough that something comes in. And that's fine. So I'm going to turn that up. And for each channel, I'm going to turn this up until they are playing, and it's around -18. It's averaging around there. That's what we say. So it's like maybe sometimes it goes over. It's maybe a little bit under, but it doesn't like go too much. And then the other important thing is I'm asking them, I'm watching them like, hey, can you make sure you're playing like you would play when you're performing, like when you're playing. So if they're hitting it really quietly or they're hitting it crazy loud for some reason, you don't want that. You're trying to ask them, and this is a process of learning them to you, like learning how they play to you. But if you're a musician, you can give this to your sound person too. Like, hey, when they ask you to sound check, make sure you're playing like you will play. And the more you are comfortable with that, the better that your sound person will be able to do that. So we're trying to turn this gain up so that it's right around -18. And then once I see that, I can slowly turn this up and see what it sounds like. And this is what I'll do. So then you start hearing it coming out. Okay, and this is just the first step. You're like, okay, I hear it coming out, that's good. And you don't need to turn it up super loud because we'll do that later. So okay, I got the kick coming out. Cool, I'm gonna do this for the snare too. So we'll go to the snare and then switch the solo. So I'm gonna select snare, solo, and then I'm gonna watch this meter. Every now and then it's hitting. Yeah, I'll just mute this one just for a little bit, just the kick. So so you can see it hitting. Every now and then it's hitting like -12 maybe. You can kind of see that, right? Every now and then it's like, it's waiting for it. Find a spot for it. Let's get there. So you're just asking them, hit the snare. And this will go a little faster because you'll be moving along. Like you're like, yeah, so you see those harder hits are going a little bit over 18, so I'll just turn it down just a little bit. That way if they hit even harder, it's fine. Cool. And then move on to the toms. Let's loop that. Which song is this?
Looks like he's just looking.
Yeah? Cool. And you can see this, when he hits it, it goes a little bit over 18, that's fine. Like just a little bit over, I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit. It's just so we don't need that hot, but that's what I'm looking for. And this is easier, like you're just asking them, boom, boom, they're just hitting it. And you do this for every channel. So I'm gonna quickly run through the next ones and see the floor tom. Okay. Overheads. Okay, so yeah, and I'm making the gain come up and just slowly bringing up the levels, just say, okay, I can hear it. I hear something. And then we'll work on some things later. Here's some of those cymbals coming in, and then we'll go to the hi-hat, the last one of the drums. The drums, when you first start, maybe it's the longest one to take. A little tambourine on the hi-hat mic, it sounds like. Okay, so we have something going, and that's it. And we're like, okay, drummer. And okay, the other thing I'll do here, I'll do it. So I'm gonna do the kick. So for drums, the one other thing I do like to check is the gate. All right, let me lower the drums just a little bit and I'll talk about that. So there's a section right after the preamp, and it's called a gate. And for drums, because if you look over there, there's so many mics, and they're pretty close to each other. So you can imagine one mic might pick up another thing, right? And that totally happens. So a gate is something that can help to alleviate microphone bleed. So another mic picking up not the thing it's picking up. So like the rack tom mic won't pick up the snare as much. It's not doing that. Because a lot of times you're not hitting the toms. Like the drummer's not hitting the toms, so they're hitting a lot of hi-hat, snare, and kick. And you don't want that microphone to just be like picking up everything and it's just coming out of the sound system. So what we can do is use a gate. So how does a gate work? A gate listens for the volume of that source. So let's talk about the rack tom. So we'll do that one. So this rack tom, and we'll go view the gate. So we're gonna look at this gate. I will actually go and change this to a gate. So okay, we're gonna use a gate. So what a gate does is listen for the volume to go above a certain threshold. So if you imagine like a little gate, like a fence and a gate, like you're walking into a house, like into like a yard. If you see a gate, and you imagine like yourself as volume, just in general. If you're really short and you're not taller than the gate, you will not come through. That's how a gate works. Once you grow tall enough. And so once you're tall enough and you are above the gate, taller than the gate, you can pass through, the gate. That's how it works. And then a gate will close, like, so sound, it's loud and then it decays, it comes off. So once it goes under the threshold, is what it's called, under the threshold volume, then the gate will close. And then none of it will not even pick up anything. So it's like all or nothing. It's got to be above the gate, and then all the sound will come through. And then once it comes underneath, then it stops. So that's what a gate does. And so you can see this, I don't know if you can see this, right? So you can see the volume of this mic. It's picking up sound, but the threshold is right, I'll move this, there's a threshold knob, which is nice. So you can see the top point right here, whether or not it's actually gonna go above and have the tom come out. So we'll mute these other ones, and we'll listen for this tom. So you can hear this tom, let me turn up the drums again. It's just for this one, all right? So only when it hits, it comes out. If I lower the threshold, you start hearing other stuff even when the tom is not hitting. Right? Makes sense? So we're raising that threshold so that when the tom hits, it comes, but when it's not hitting, things don't come in. Right? And so you can maybe hear a little bit is because this other line, it's really nice, these visualizations. You can see audio coming into that mic. It's picking up stuff. And we're just dropping the level by, right here, 16 decibels. This range one, it's saying, I'm lowering the volume by 16 decibels if it's under the threshold. Any questions about that? It's a nice little tool that then you don't have to worry about, like, oh, I need to turn down the toms because it's picking up other stuff when they're not playing. But then it's automatically doing that. Yeah?
So where in the sound check process do you start configuring?
Yeah, so usually when I do drums, I do gain and I do gate. Yeah. I missed one thing that I didn't do. And the other thing I will do is low cut. You see that right here. I'm going to show this one too. So that's in the configuration program. So I will do these three things for drums only. And this is the first thing I do. So this is the most involved one, but it's pretty quick once you do it, because you're like, okay, when I'm doing the kick, I'll just say, all right, let's just do this tom. So I'm doing the tom. I'll be like, okay, the gain is good. I'm done there. Then I'll just set the low cut. And you can see it here. The low cut is, and I'll hit the EQ one, but it also shows in the preamp one, but I'll hit the EQ, and it's this one right here. Let me turn off the EQ really quick. This just cuts all low frequencies above a certain point. So anything lower than a certain point, that will not come through. So we want to cut those frequencies in case like the kick drum hits, and even if it did come through, it won't come out of that mic. So that's why we do that, because yeah, and then we do the gate. Yep, and then gate. That's how I would do it. Yep. Yeah, and this is just a quick. So we're not usually I don't start EQing yet. I'm just like I just want a good level coming in. I cut the low frequencies that have no business being in that particular thing. So like on a kick, let's go look at the low cut. There's no low cut on the kick, which makes sense. It can go down pretty low. The only time I would use a low cut on a kick drum is if you're using a PA system that has like no subwoofers. So, but you guys have an awesome PA system, so like it's gonna, that low frequency, it's fine. Like it'll come out. Yeah, so you want that. Yep. But every other channel, pretty much, I would use a low cut. All right, so you see a lot of these already have them on there. I'm just flipping through some of these, like so the snare has a low cut right there and a tom. So this is where, I have some cheat sheets too I can send to David to share. Like, oh, this is where I generally start for low cut frequencies for different instruments. But basically, as I'm sound checking, I'm doing gain, low cut, and then gate for drums generally. And that's it. It's a really quick. So I'm gonna go look at this floor tom gate really quick too. These are fine too. I just changed the setting as an example, but there's different modes on this mixer. It's pretty nice. They're called expanders. So these, it'll kind of just ease in the sound. So it doesn't completely cut off the audio of if it's under the threshold for the gate. It'll just, as it's approaching, it like slowly fades it in. So you have these different curves, and it's very visual, so it's really nice. So the gate will be like the harshest one, but you can also, again, lower this range to be like, oh, I only want to, when it's under the gate, I only cut a certain amount. Okay. Generally with this kind of stuff, I would say this is a learning part. A gate,
I just tell my volunteers, just move the threshold around, and if the sound only comes out when it's hitting, that's good, and then you're done. And I would be like, somebody like David, or somebody like who really wants to learn, you can mess with all the parameters. And usually with these boards, I would set them up as templates so that like the average volunteer doesn't have to worry about it. You just set this threshold. So I tell my volunteers at our church, okay, set the gain, set the low cut frequency, and then just move the threshold of the gate a little bit to make sure it's like not picking up stuff that it shouldn't. And so it's only coming out. So I'm doing the floor tom one. So that floor tom's hitting pretty regularly. So I'm like, yeah, it's coming through. And then it kind of cuts that volume when it's not. And then just, it'll clean up your mix instantly. So that's what I'll do there. All right. And yeah, so drums. And then we'll just quickly, then I'll just lower the drums, and then I'll probably do the instruments. So then I lowered the drum DCA all the way down, and then I'll just bring up the instrument one, just so I can do sound check. Usually the drummer will stop playing too. So I'll just gain up the bass and everything else. So let me unmute this too. Okay. So let's just select the gain, the bass, and then we will look at that. So that's a little bit hot, so I'm gonna turn that down. And by hot, it's a little bit over that 18, a lot over. So I was like, okay, this one's right around there, so that's perfect. And then just hear it. Okay, you got something coming out. I don't need to gate this, and then I can check the low cut too. So low cut, as I turn this, I'll probably put it, I usually just like to put it at 40 hertz for a bass. And then an acoustic guitar, we'll like, look at that one. This one looks pretty good, but let's just say it was like low, like this, then I'm gonna turn it up. So they play, and then bring it up. Just, yep, I can hear something, just kind of get it in there a little bit. There's no strings on this one, that's the next one. And then keyboard, we've got something going here too, so we'll just take a look at that one. Again, that one's a little loud. Just kind of looks like it's playing constantly, and that was pretty good. Yeah, right there. And cool, that's some keyboard, all right, cool. And then electric guitar. Maybe it stopped playing for a second. Let's wait. Got to a verse or something, and the electric guitar stopped. That's really good though. That's good musicianship there. Good job, electric guitars. All right, so we got that gain up for the electric. Turn that up. All right, just hear something. All right, cool. And it looks like there's a pad too, like just some background, like ambient stuff going on. So look at that. Bring that up. Just this, whatever this is. All right. Cool, like that. So we have sound coming out. This is the pad, the gain. Then we'll look at the vocals. All right, so I'll just lower the instruments a little bit. Then you get the vocals. So the reason why I like to do the instruments first is for vocalists to do sound check. A lot of times they want to sing with something, whether it's a guitar, a piano. If you're an experienced vocalist and you're confident, you'll sing a cappella, no problem. But we want to get performance level out of everyone. So a lot of times that helps, like maybe with a shyer vocalist or someone who just wants that extra support. So that's why I like to do the instruments first, vocalists last, make sure I can get them to sing at the level they're going to sing at. This is like cheating because they're singing at a performance and we recorded it, so this is perfect. All right. All right. So we'll take a look at vocal 1, and we'll just gain them up. Oh yeah. Knobs. All right. Here we go. That's the gain looks pretty good there, and then I will look at the low cut. So this one's at about 130. It's a male vocalist. So I'll start there. I might adjust it later, but when you're doing a sound check, you just want it on somewhere around 120, 150 on everything. You can just put it somewhere. Again, we will do that when they rehearse. Then we do our real, like kind of rehearsal sound check, full sound check. So we got gain coming. This one has a gate on. I'm just gonna turn it off for now. Maybe we'll hear something and we will turn it back on later. Vocal 2, gain that one up. This one looks pretty good. Let me bring up the vocals.
Rocks, hills, and flames. We keep the sounding shore.
They got vocal 2, you can hear something.
Sounding.
Vocal 1, and then vocal 3, I might need a different spot. Yeah, so we'll grab a spot there. All right. So again, get some gain on that one. Turn off this one for now. actually let me double check. Low cut on female vocalist, it's at 160, that's fine for now. And then for vocal 3, we got a low cut, and that's sound check. Like that took a little longer than probably it would actually take, because you can walk through it. It usually lasts about 5 or 10 minutes, really, once you do it a couple times. Just going through each one. And the important thing is gain. That gain on every single one was like pretty much at around that -18, like where it's blinking right there. Like when they're singing or when they're playing at the performance level, you're like, sometimes it goes over, and sometimes I will ask them, like, you can see them singing the start of a verse. They might sing like a quiet ballad verse, and that's fine. Capture that, and then be like, hey, can you get to the chorus and sing that too? I want to hear you hit that higher note, and in that higher range, you're pushing your voice a little bit, and just see if it's like, it doesn't go way over -18. So that's what I'm looking for.
Can you explain a little bit what happens if you don't get the right gain?
Okay.
Too much
Yep.
or too little?
Yeah. So the reason why I want to equalize the gain, and I want it to be at a good level. I mean, I want to equalize it at -18, so that's pretty much loud, but not too loud. So when it's too loud, you might, if you gain at this point and you get too loud, and someone starts playing way harder, maybe like a guitarist hits a lead pedal and it jumps a few decibels up, like 3 to 6 decibels up higher, or a vocalist just sings way harder than they really would sing, then it'll clip the system. So it'll hit this red part, and it'll sound scratchy. It'll be like, and it's very distracting. Like, and it kind of hurts people's ears too. It's actually a pretty high frequency like thing that kind of pierces people's ears. So, and it could damage equipment to you. So there's like all those reasons, like why it's too loud. So that's if you gain like too loud. And so if it's like regularly at like -4 or something, and it goes to 0. So I think a clip is 0 on this board. So if you're like regularly at -4, then you don't have a lot of room for them to get a little bit louder. And that's what you're basically hedging, that they might get a little bit louder. And then if it's too quiet, then you might hear, like you're gonna raise the volume up to get to hear them, but you're also raising the volume of anything that's like electrical noise that might be there. So you're raising the volume of the entire signal. So you're getting the gain of the source as loud as clearly as possible, and then you bring it up. I don't know if that makes sense.
So here's something that happens. Why can't you just change the gain later on during this
Yep.
service?
Okay, cool. And then another reason why we want to set the gain and then stop there and do that first and make it a priority, and then we leave it, is because the input gain affects like everything down the chain. So including people's in-ear monitors. So you're setting that level, and so if let's say they turn up the guitar in their box, like in their in-ear monitor mixer, the guitarist does it, and the keyboard turns up the keyboard. If you turn up the gain, it'll make that louder for them. And they wouldn't have expected. They didn't do anything, and it's now made it louder. If you turn down the gain, it'll make theirs quieter, and they're like, where did I go? And they didn't adjust anything on theirs. And so like the input gain is kind of like the first, like the master copy of like what's in the board. And then as it moves along the board, the sound moves along the board, eventually to the speakers, eventually different places, like the live stream or the gym or things like that. So it's all eventually gonna go somewhere. The gain affects all of them. So if you turn up the gain, it turns it up everywhere. If you turn down the gain, it turns it down everywhere. And you might be like, oh, I'm just turning it. That's the thing. You're mixing maybe for the house, and so if you turn it up and down, you're like, oh yeah, it worked for me. But then like it messed up a lot of other places. And that's why we want to get gain at a steady level, equalized, so everyone has enough that they can turn up and down where they are. Does that make sense? And then you don't touch it. But yes. Yes. Oh, that's important. Yeah, it is on purpose. Kind of a safety mechanism for me in case like it actually is loud. So I have it down all the way first when I'm doing my sound check, and then I bring it up so that they might start singing, and the gain, it could be clipping, but then it won't come out of anything, right? So it's like, okay, cool. Like, but then I have a chance to turn it down or something like that. And then I'm like, okay, and then sometimes I actually don't know, like, hey, how loud is it gonna be in this PA too, right? So I'm like, okay, like this is how much room I have, like, because I'm okay, like. That's why. So I'll remind, like I have that LR main fader at 0, and I like to just leave that there generally. And then I have my DCAs eventually, like they're at 0 as well. And then I can let me mute these two, like the vocals. So I'm bringing up the vocals. So I just slowly bring them up, and I can hear them. They're not.
Prophets had foretold
Right. So I can, in case I want, just to see
a
how loud I want. Yeah.
mighty
Because if I bring it, if it was already like up at 0 or something, it might be pretty, even if it's not loud enough to damage anything, it just might jar people. Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Is there a certain decibel you aim for the overall like sound of this room that you would like?
Right. I would say,
Is there a way for us to know if we're at
do you guys have a decibel meter? It broke? Sometimes I will literally use my phone, a free app. It's better than nothing. I have an app on my phone that just measures the decibel kind of generically. I would say I would say it's kind of personal taste in some sense. I would say there's probably a minimum level. I would say like 65 probably. You want it to be at least 65 so that people aren't straining too hard. I would say probably 75 is a little bit more comfortable where people are not trying. But I will probably run a worship service, like music, it could reach like 85 or something like that, maybe like peak at 90. That's pretty loud. That's more like maybe Friday, I don't know, Friday night, for fun stuff. But like, yeah. But it can get pretty loud. But like, I think 90 is pretty loud. We've hit 90 at our church, and it's loud. But like, if you have a good mix, loudness, just to kind of do a tangent, is kind of it's based on perception. So like volume, like it can be at 90 dBs and not feel loud if certain frequencies aren't that loud. Like so, we're gonna talk about this. But let me finish this. But yes, that's right. So I would reach for somewhere between 70 and like 85, maybe something like 85 is on the high end. So you're like, oh, maybe only on the loudest parts of certain songs, right? Like big old bridges and stuff like that. Yeah.
How do you handle when there's a wireless mic that's getting passed around?
Uh-huh.
And so different speakers are at different volumes.
Right. So we will talk about that. Usually for those, if you really have to, I'll just say if you really have to mess with gain on those, it doesn't matter. Those aren't going in the people's in-ears, so it's kind of okay. Those are kind of a little bit of exception for like our stuff, like MCs talking and stuff like that. But we'll also use compressors to help automate that, so you don't have to do it as much. So we'll get to that for sure. And then for like, that's why it's nice you have like a service lead DCA on here. So like you can quickly ride that fader if you need to. Like if I'm passing this is a mic and I pass it around, I can just, oh, this person's a little quieter. I have a little bit of room to like just bring it up if they're too quieter than the last person, or a little bit louder, I can just quickly turn it down. But if it is a gain issue and it's a clipping, you can turn down the gain for those. In that case, yeah. Because it's not like going in people's in-ears, and that's just one thing, so it's okay, yeah.
So in a live instrumentation setting,
Yeah.
during service,
Yep.
obviously there's going to be like, there could be a verse that's really quiet.
Yeah.
And you go into chorus,
Yeah.
it's get louder.
Yeah.
So you're kind of proactively adjusting as you go, right? Like it's not just like a sit back and
Yeah. So I will show you how, for the most part, I just sit back. For the most part, yes. That's how we're going to use compressors. But so we need our gains to be just kind of equalized so that we can use the next tools to kind of like help control it.
it automates that process.
For like it feels like 95% of it is automated. Yes. Like you might make and when you make adjustments, you'll just make minor ones that are very fast and easy. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So once we have, let me make sure I gained up this guy. Vocal 3. I just want to make sure I have something for this guy. Where is he? He just sings like
He's here.
this guy right here. Okay. Oh yeah. He is not 25, 26, 27.
Oh, that's part of the user.
Yeah, that's right. See 27.
Yes.
Wireless box. It's okay if we don't have him. I mean, we can do
It's
without
just
it.
Rob.
Yeah. He sounded beautiful, but it's cool. All right. For now, I'll leave it. It's probably fine too. It's like decently gained up.
What is it?
27. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's weird. we'll leave that one for now. We won't have to mix him in. That's okay. Okay, let me unmute these. Alright. So this is kind of where I'll turn it down just a little bit as I talk over them. But this is kind of where you end up. I would normally put these at 0, just like if I'm sound checking. And then they'll probably rehearse. Like you'll let them adjust their monitors. That's what I usually do. So I do a sound check and I let them. I'm like, hey, maybe you want to play and adjust your in-ears for a little bit before you start a rehearsal. But what's good about gaining them, then you want to make sure. Okay, that's what I want to talk about. You want to make sure you're doing that sound check first. So I did say that, but I'm just going to reiterate it. Like do that sound check first. That's the first thing you do, so that if you haven't been doing this, like musicians will usually kind of like adjust their in-ears while once they get on the thing, they're like, okay, but you haven't gained. So like if they have already adjusted their in-ears thinking like, oh, I'm good, I can hear myself, but their gain is like really low, let's say, on the board. And then you're like, oh, I kind of want to turn up that gain. So what we talked about, you turn up that gain, it's going to start getting super loud in the ear. So I usually just say like, hey, make sure we're going to gain first, and then you can adjust everything and maybe play like half of a song or something, or you can play through one song, and then they're adjusting their ears. It's not going to be a full like practice of a song. They're just kind of like messing around, maybe stumble, stop. But you just let them do that. That's what I usually recommend too. So okay, yeah.
Okay, so 2 scenarios. One is a band comes in.
Yeah.
And they just want to go.
Yeah.
So they just, let's just go.
Yeah.
It's ready. So
Yeah.
how, as you as a sound tech, how would you work with that kind of?
Yeah. So usually I would say like I would talk like, hey, actually, can we please do a line check first? I call it line check or a sound check. Like, can I do a line check? I want to check each signal, make sure you're good, so that your in-ears don't go crazy on you. Like I'll say something like that because I want to show care for them. Like I'm actually I want to help them. It's not because I don't want them to just start playing and doing things, but that's generally what I would say. But let's do a line check first. And I will usually try to take control, but we've also, again, as a ministry, we work together. We want to say like, hey, like worship team, know that the sound guy is going to ask for this too. So that helps a lot too, right, with the communication and kind of expectation.
Okay. What if you're a musician?
Yeah.
And they're here, they're now learning about the value of a sound check, of a line check.
Yeah.
But maybe their sound tech
Yeah.
is not familiar with it.
Yep. And we've had that exactly. We've had it the opposite way. If you're like a worship leader, or if you're not a worship leader, I would nudge the worship leader. Like I'm a drummer sometimes, right? So I'm like, hey, ask them to do a sound check first before like we rehearse. And we've also like again like in that growing process we just said like, hey, like have them run through the line. Like that's why I call it line check. Like run through the line like in order, right? Like again, like I'm not a complete stickler on that. It's just the easiest way I think as you're like first learning it. But I just like, hey, just run down the line, like just to kick, and it does. Honestly, at Sunset Church, like we only started doing that. I would say like kind of like started like really getting people to do it consistently like for like 6 months, and I could tell like they're doing it way faster. Yeah, like that first time it was a little slow, but like it's like, oh, they just do it, and now sound guys are like, hey, I'm gonna do this now. It's like, all right, kick, and they're like in the intercom, like cool, like kick this, and like, all right, in order, and it's been good. So like there's a little bit of growing pains if you haven't done it consistently, but it. Like our in-ears, like we don't worry about like, oh, they're gonna turn it up. Like that was what it's like. Are they gonna turn us down? Like I think that happened a lot. Like they didn't act like maybe we were like they gained us, but we weren't actually performing. Like we were just like maybe noodling, like when we were like messing around before, but they didn't say they were doing sound check. They're like, oh, we got you, we're good. Like we have a signal, but we weren't playing at performance level. We were just kind of like whatever, or like just kind of like picking at the guitar, or just kind of talking into the mic. If you're a vocalist, they're just like holding it, talking, and then they start singing, and like we're rehearsing, and they're like, oh shoot, that's really loud. Maybe it's clipping even. So they're like, turn down the gain. That is the right thing to do because you don't want it to clip. But then all of a sudden, everyone in their ears are like, I can't hear myself anymore. What happened? And then it's just a little bit of that. So then we're like, hey, like, you know, people got frustrated. So I was like, hey, no, like let's not first, like let's just try to talk it out with them, but that's why I think it's important to communicate, because and on either side, if you're a musician here and you know that and you're like your sound guy is not doing that, just encourage them to do that. Hey, can you just make sure each one is good, you know? And if you're a sound tech and the worship team is not, just be like, oh hey, can we just stop really quick, like and do a line check so that, you know, like nothing crazy changes in the middle of your rehearsal and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. This might be a little bit of a side route. What tools do musicians on stage have to talk to the sound?
Yeah.
Because everyone's wearing in-ears.
Yeah. I think I'm looking at here. So usually, I literally on this side, for musicians, it's actually a lot easier. For musicians, they just shout. I can hear them, okay? Like musicians talking to the sound tech, I hear. If you're a vocalist, of course, speak into a mic. That's even easier. If I've already have something, then I can hear you. Because I would just say, because I'm not usually wearing a headphone. We have, is this on Velcro? Yeah. Okay. There's a live mix, there's a live mix personal mixer here in the booth, and every musician should have one on the stage too. So if I need to talk though when I'm running a line check, this is how I do it. So I'm doing the kick over here, so I will talk to the drummer. So hey drummer, can you play your kick? So I hold down this intercom button, and then this lights up. When I let go, that light turns off. This little white one on the top right there, right? So that means the intercom is active, and anyone with in-ear system, and they have their ears in, they should hear me. Well, a couple things. Go to the accessory channels and make sure this intercom right here, this intercom channel is up, not muted. Because I think they can mute it too. There's a way to mute the intercom and stuff like that, so they can mute that. But just have it up. Generally, it's fine. I think most people don't have it muted, but yeah, it's been great because as a drummer, especially, you can't talk. And as a drummer, you can't talk to your bandmates because you don't have a mic really. So we're like, hey, worship leader, what were you doing there? Did you want me to do this? And so anybody, bassist, a lot of times, our bassists notoriously, I think you guys have a bass worship leader, that's cool. But bassists notoriously, they don't have a microphone, so a bassist can talk. So if you're talking between bandmates, use the intercom. It's really good. Because your worship leader will be talking about stuff, and you're like, I don't know what they said, or and then you're like, hey, wait, actually, and that helps a lot. When you're doing a line check, usually, of course, I will talk to the musicians this way instead of trying to shout at them and get anything. But once you get their attention, of course, you can. It's easy to get their attention if they have their ears in and you use the intercom. Yeah, this thing's great. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. Cool. So we're at this point where they probably have messed around and their in-ears are good. Then they just go in rehearsal, and then this is our rehearsal as a tech. We're doing basically an extended sound check. So we're gonna mix and then do things. So before I go and do anything, the order I do things is it's generally in this order. So we did the preamp, which is the gain. We did the low cut. We might have done a gate for drums. There's a section here called dynamics that is also known as a compressor, and then there's an equalizer, shorthand is EQ. And if you don't know just how the board works, each of these you can turn off each section, so you can see for whatever. I'll just select a channel. So this floor tom, if it's not lit up, it's off. So now that this compressor is engaged, it's lit up. But I can just bypass it and say, no, I don't want whatever I'm doing on that to do it. The EQ, I can turn off the EQ. So you can turn off the low cut as well. It's if you want to hear the difference. So we can try that really quick. Let's see.
Prophets had foretold it, a mighty
So it's like this
king
vocal.
would come.
Yeah, I just turned it down a little bit. I just turned it down.
Ruler,
So I'm on this vocal list right here, vocal 2, and the compressor is off, right? So I can just turn it on and see what happens. That's all. We'll talk through this stuff, but I'm just telling you, you can turn things on and off. You could turn off the EQ for her as well, and it'll probably sound a little different. So let me turn this down for a little bit. Okay, so as I walk through the band, what I'll probably do first is kind of get a drum mix going, so they're playing. I'm gonna go through a little livelier song. Do I stop this? Okay. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. Where is this guy? What do we got here? Okay. All right, so as we're playing, I might get a drum mix going. I just have the instruments and vocals a little low just to hear where that is. Again, I'm just doing volume right now. So we're just listening to the kick. toms. I would say like the rack tom I'm hearing is quite full and lively, so I might have it just a little lower than the floor tom. So with that overhead now. All right, so let's try that, and then we'll bring in some bass to support it. My goal eventually, though, is to make sure this is supporting the vocals and the vocals sit on top so that we can sing along. All right, so I'm just gonna bring everything kind of like, I can kind of hear a little bit of everything. Cool. And then bring up the vocals now. Okay, so this is just levels. And I think like if you gain right and you just level, it already sounds pretty good. You got good musicians too. You do. You guys have really good musicians. They're kind of sitting kind of generally where, so it's like kind of spread out like in the frequency spectrum, but it sounds pretty good. And so like that's why if you're first starting out, like that's all you need to do is kind of like explore. And just bring things up, make sure the gain, if you have gain, you have things to work. Even as you do things, you have a thing to work. I'll make a note really quick. Like it doesn't really matter, because you're using these DCAs on the right-hand side here, and they're sitting at 0. A DCA, okay, like, does anyone not know what a DCA does? Just so, because to be clear, yeah. Okay, cool. So the DCA, like things are assigned. So like you have a drums DCA, an instruments DCA, a vocals DCA for the band. Let's just say those 3. There's actually a vocal reverb one here all the way on the right too. We'll talk about that later. But these DCAs are controlling multiple other faders. So like the drums one, all the drum channels are assigned to it. If you select on the DCA, like I'm gonna hit select here, it'll spill the channels, the members of the DCA onto the surface. So you can be like, okay, these are the channels that the drum DCA are controlling, okay? And if I deselect it, it'll come back, all right? So if I select it, it spills the DCA over. And so these are the channels that I'm controlling. So if I move this fader to, when I have the fader of the drums at 0, then the audio mix of these drums are like this. It sounds like this. The kick is a little down here and the snare is up here. That's what it sounds like. But that's what 0 is. 0 represents this. So as I lower it, they're all lowering proportionally down until I go to negative infinity, no sound up from the drums. But if I need a little increase, and it's like if I wanted to push all of these up a little bit, each one of these by like 1 dB, 2 dBs, 3 dBs like that, then I can do that. I can push the entire DC up, and they're all moving. They're not moving physically, but they are increasing in proportion to that mix. Does that make sense? So that way, you always have a reference level of like so that's why I always start at 0, so that I'm like, I like kind of generally how the drums sound together like this. Then I know at 0, I can just bring it up to 0, and it's good. If I just need all of them to be a little bit louder, I just turn it up a little, the DCA, and then I can turn down the DCA. Like that. And so instruments, same thing. All the other green instruments, I think it's color-coded, so all the green instruments, if I spill that one, you have all of these green ones. If I spill the vocals, you have 4 vocals in the vocals. Okay. So let's talk about how the next step I would do. So once you kind of have a generic level, then I will probably move towards, I usually do like EQ and then compression and then EQ again, just in case I have time. So I'll kind of start with like thinking about filling the frequency spectrum as, not evenly, but like I want to fill the frequency spectrum. Let's take a look at this EQ section. So you can see here, if I don't look at low cut, there's a low, mid, high, Like, so the entire frequency spectrum is broken up into like 4 buckets. And generally for like music, like you kind of want like let's say you wanted every bucket to be even. You kind of just want it tilted like a little bit slightly so that the low end is a little bit probably gonna be higher than the high end. Because the high end stuff, if it's even, the high end stuff sounds a little harsh. So my goal when I'm thinking about mixing is fill the buckets. It'll probably be a little bit, just slightly hyped, like tilted so that lows and low mids are maybe a little louder. And that's what I'm going for, so that it's not harsh on the ears. But then you don't want to overpower either. You don't want it too much. But that's kind of like the goal that I think of. Filling the buckets, I start like even and then maybe tilt it a little bit like that. Tilt it towards the low end. But the problem when we're doing this is that on the low end, and low is like 20 hertz, I would say generically. It could be almost anything, but let's say it's 20 hertz to like 200 hertz, something like that. Low, that's low. And then low mids are maybe 200 to like 800, and then 800 to like 4K or 5K is like high mids, and then highs are anything above that. So you have these 4 buckets that you're trying to fill. And one of the things like over time that you'll learn is like there's a lot of things that live in low mids and high mids. Not a lot of things live in the low area. It's like the kick drum and the bass, and like maybe a little bit of the floor tom or something. Maybe if a keyboard player plays down low, maybe. Like a synth bass or something like that. But low end stuff, there's not a lot of. So you're like, okay, I need a lot of things down there to fill up. But a bass guitar, an acoustic guitar, a vocal, male vocal, female vocal, electric guitar, keyboards, you have trumpets, strings, whatever, like any kind of like all that stuff. They're like, they want to live in that either low mids or high mids area. So there's going to be a lot of stuff wanting to compete for that space. So we do have to make some decisions to try to help make it not sound too crazy loud there, and then so that other things sound clear. So one of the things that you can do to kind of just start learning about it is like listening to the songs you like critically, and just be like, what stands out in this song? And then like how much louder is like when the singer compared to the piano, right? And just like kind of ask those kinds of questions, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. And that helped me a lot, just to be like, okay, like where should things sit in the mix? Like how low should it be, how high, and then, but how clear is it? So then I start having goals. So like, here's what so my goal is like, I want to feel the kick drum in a live setting. I want to hear the bass, because it provides, because I hear it in music. So I want to hear the bass guitar because it provides the harmony of the song. It's like, it kind of guides me to like where the song moves, the chord progression. You're like, no, like that. I started out as a piano player, and then I went to guitar playing. So I thought like, oh, I want to hear that stuff. But when I listen, that stuff doesn't stand out in the mix for very long. Like maybe in the intro, and then like they're picking an intro or they're playing like a melodic thing. But then when the chorus gets loud, I'm like, I don't really hear that anymore. So I was like, okay, interesting. Like where did it go? And then I'm like, vocals though, they sit there. Like if there's for singing music, you're like, oh, I can always hear the vocal, and that's important. I was like, okay, like how do I do that? And so what I've learned is like, I want to turn up the vocals, but when I turn up the vocals, I start not hearing, I couldn't hear like the guitar very clearly, or like the keyboard or the bass or something like that. And what I found a lot of times in my vocal mixing, I had too much of this low mid area. So somewhere between 200 hertz and 600 hertz, I just had too much of it. It does make a vocal sound really warm. So let's listen to a vocal. I'm gonna leave these down.
Guilty and hiding.
So right now her EQ is off. She has a low cut filter on. Right? So if I move the low cut down, it'll be even warmer probably, just like, okay, there's something else. But I'm safe to put this low cut probably 180. It thins it out a little bit on the low end already. Let me just reset this EQ.
Christ is born.
And by itself, it sounds pretty good. You're like, oh, it sounds really full and really, just like really rich and stuff. But I found that a lot of vocals, how they want to sit in the mix is more like this. So I'll probably pick a low frequency one around 200 something. You can see there's a lot there actually on there. But even listening, so we're gonna just bring that down now. So I'm gonna just drastically. So if I cut that, it's like a lot. That's too much, but like that's what I'm cutting. So just so you can hear it.
So
like, nothing.
Peace for those who believe.
And then I might pick a low mid
So
too,
come,
just to
though you
maybe
have
somewhere between 4 and 600. I'll just listen. This one I might sweep around, but and where it sounds good. But I'm gonna bring this up with the mix.
See what
Okay.
your God has done.
I'm actually kick a little more out.
Christ is born.
And you can make it wider too, so you can see this one getting thinner and wider.
Christ is
The width on the top
born.
here. There's a knob here that says width, so you can kind of make that.
Christ is born.
So you pick a center frequency, and then you can see how wide it is. So we're gonna make this. It sounds a lot thinner, and you're like, oh, maybe it doesn't sound that good. So this is what it sounds like without the EQ. So I just turn it off, super full.
Christ is born.
All right. So, but I can turn her up now too.
Christ is born.
And not a lot of that low energy is picking up anymore because I've already cut a little bit. There's still more coming out because I didn't cut it out completely. But as I bring it up, now that low end energy. So I'm gonna try that again. Back it up a little. Back it up a little bit. She's singing already. Here we go. Yeah, it's cool.
God has done. Christ is
Right. So if I put it at 0, you can feel that low end of her voice a lot more.
Christ is born.
If I turn on that EQ, and it just cleans it up a little bit. Now it sounds kind of like it was when it was quiet, but it's louder. Like it has that fullness, but it's like louder. Because I didn't cut it completely. I just dropped it and then brought up the entire volume. And so let's see how it sits in the mix with like these guys.
For our pardon, His promise is peace.
So now I feel like I can turn up the bass a little bit more so that because it's not competing.
He's the Lamb who
I'm gonna take out that EQ again.
slain for our pardon.
And those like pardon, it's like a lot of.
This is peace for those who believe. So come.
Yeah, so I like to clean up my vocals like that in that low mid area so that you can get more clarity out of their voice. And the other stuff that is playing will fill in that gap that you're taking away. Like, oh, there's bass, there's acoustic guitar in there, and there's keyboards playing in there. So like, I like to make sure the vocals are like on that higher mid so like it's clear. And I've just noticed that a lot of recordings are like that too. Like, yeah. Any questions on that?
Christ is born.
So I think it's a difference between trying to make it sound good on its own
Yep.
and it sounding good in the context of the whole.
Yeah. Sometimes it sounds like things generally sound, almost everything sounds, well, not everything, but like a lot of the mid-range stuff, so guitars, vocals, keyboards, they might sound a little thinner by themselves. But in the mix, like they're taking up different spaces a little bit, and they naturally have more hype in areas. So you're balancing that out a little bit with that EQ, yeah. Do I ever boost? Oh, good question. I do sometimes, but I would say like my general rule is like I will cut more than I boost. So I do, but it's rare. If you're not like and we also try to EQ in a sense as little as possible. I'm not trying to EQ everywhere. There's a couple of main spots I try to EQ and see if I leave the other stuff open and it sounds good. But generally, if there is a frequency that I like to boost, like a common one for like a vocalist, like if for some reason it doesn't seem as clear even, like so like there's an area between like 3K, like maybe like 4K. It makes a vocalist sound very like present in your face. So a lot of times instead of boosting that, I'll cut around it just a little bit. So I'll cut around like 1.5 or 2K, and then I might cut at like 6K, just these little dips. So I'll do it right here. So I'll pick like a high mid one. I'll scroll over to right around here. So I want 4K to maybe like stand out. So I'll make it a little bit narrower too. And I'll just like dip a little, what is that? -3. So I just do -3. And then like we'll go do the high end and make sure, and you have a little mode button here. So I'll pick a PEQ so that it looks the same. And then I will just dip that at like 6K or something. So I basically lower around it so that other 4K stuff, I get it up instead of boosting. Sometimes you don't have enough bands to do that. Like maybe you're doing something else. Just like, okay, I'll just boost it a little. Like so, I will do it if I feel like it. Yep. But general rule, I will cut instead of boost. Yeah.
So for clarity's sake, what is the job of a compressor and equalizer, and like what do they do?
Yeah. So equalizers are so you're messing with frequencies, right? So low, mid, high frequencies, and you're trying to shape the sound that ends up coming out. So, you know, like, who's singing? What's her name? Lizzie, right? She's singing, and if she's singing not into a microphone, it sounds like her. But when you sing into a microphone, it's not perfect. Like the microphone can hype up certain frequencies, and it can do that. So you're trying to maybe make her sound, or you're trying to shape it so that it sits in the mix a little differently. Because like, hey, it's not her singing solo, so I'm gonna there's all these other instruments that are there, and when all of that low end from her voice is also there, it's not that it sounds bad, but I might not be able to turn her up as loud too. So like volume is different from like the frequency spectrum, right? So yeah, and then so compressing, so we're gonna get to that next, is talking about volume. It's like controlling, so they call it dynamics because dynamics is about loud and soft. So you're trying to control how loud and soft things get. So let's do the compressor on her vocal too right now. So the EQ sounded pretty good there, and again like. These are step-based things that I try to do. Is it here? Yeah, this song. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's turn it on. All right, so compressing. Let's take a look at this compressor. Right now it's off. So the goal of a compressor is actually to, I would say like it is to automate volume a little bit, okay? So what I'm gonna try to do is get it so that when she sings quiet, it's louder, but when she sings louder, it's quieter. That's what it's trying to do. So the idea is it's similar to a gate. There's a threshold, a volume threshold, right? And you can see this. Right now it's not activated. I'll bring the threshold all the way up, very high up, and I'll turn it on. Okay, so a compressor is listening for a volume threshold similar to a gate. But the difference is that when the volume reaches that threshold, anything above it, it'll let it pass through, but it will attenuate, it'll lower the volume by a ratio. Like you can see, so I'm gonna bring this down a little bit, this threshold down. So you can see that curve where it's coming down. It's like a slant. And, I'm gonna make this a little bit more clear. So it's a harsh line. So you can see that point, that's the threshold. So right now she's barely ever reaching that threshold. So nothing is being compressed, or like barely something's reached. I'm gonna just bring it up a little bit higher. So nothing is being compressed. Nothing's happening extra for her vocal. I'm gonna also turn this down. So nothing is really happening, even though I have settings, okay? Then you have, after the threshold, you have this ratio. Like, so the higher the ratio, the more drastic you will reduce that volume, up to limiting it. So you can see this is a ratio of 100. So like anything above that threshold will never get louder. It will never get louder than that point right there. So that would be like complete limiting. So normally for a vocal, I would do a ratio of 3. So for the geeks out there, a ratio of 3 means it takes 3 decibels above that threshold to get 1 decibel louder, right? So that's the threshold. So you can see like it takes more. So she's got to give a lot more to get even 1 decibel louder, 3 times as much volume. So that's a nice little ratio for vocal compression. Yeah. Yep. Mhm. Yep. Yeah, so we'll deal with the quiet part. I'll show you how we do that. So this is how I do it. So like usually these settings, again, some of these settings, I'll show you these: ratio, attack, hold, and release. I would say like templatize this.
Thank you.
Yeah, you templatize those, right? So it's like, so there's a vocal compression setting, so that all we have to deal with as a sound tech is worry about the threshold, to be honest. So like ratio, attack, hold, release, and gain. I usually templatize those, so I'm gonna show you what I would do for a vocal. So for vocal, I would do ratio of 3, attack of like 10 milliseconds, hold 10 is fine, and then the release, I'd put it around 50 milliseconds, somewhere around there is fine. And then the gain, then I'll set the gain. So this is where we make things quieter, that are quieter or louder. So what I'm gonna do is, after I compress it, I'm gonna, after all of her vocal comes through this compressor, like left to right, I'm gonna boost her volume by 6 decibels, okay? So everything is 6 decibels louder. That means the quiet stuff is now 6 decibels louder without me moving the fader, right? So she's just gonna be louder by 6 decibels. And right now, she's not actually being, nothing's being compressed. So all I've done is lifted the entire volume by 6 decibels. So now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna get to a point where she's really, when she's singing her loudest, right, like somewhere around there, I'm gonna move the threshold down so that it compresses her 6 decibels when she's singing at her highest energy. So basically, when she gets to that point where she's loudest, and how you can see that is this meter right here. So I'm gonna get her to sing again, yeah. Thank you. So you can see this meter coming down. And so let me turn it up so you can hear what's happening too.
With fears
So with no compression, and
come, taste of His perfect
this is heavy, like a little heavier, but it's compressing more than 6 decibels there when she, but you can watch this.
Oh, come, guilty and hiding ones, there is no need to.
All right, so I would say this is not actually her loudest
See
part. So
what
I'm gonna
you're
turn her volume down a little bit on the fader. I'm just gonna lower her fader so I can work on this compression. So like maybe she gets to this chord. So
Christ is born.
I'm kind of listening for here. Like maybe I want that. That Christ right there is like her probably bigger one. Right there. So maybe, okay, so right around here. Like I might get 6 decibels of compression, hopefully not too much more so it doesn't sound completely unnatural. So I get there on that loudest part. All right, so maybe a little bit, all right, let's up a little bit. All right, so I like that right there. So you set the threshold, you're kind of like listening to her, like how she's giving her dynamics. You're like, oh, did it squash it a little bit? And no, all right, so we're good here, I think. And then, now when I put her fader up, I can kind of leave her there. Oh, so that when it's quiet, I think they'll drop it down. Let's say after this, it might drop down in volume, and then that quiet stuff might still feel pretty loud and present because that part won't be compressed. Right here, not come. That little breathy come, it was like still right there in your face because it's 6 decibels louder than it would have been without the that right there, come, like super loud and clear. And I don't have to move the fader, I just leave it there, and then she's like giving the energy back, and it controls it. It's louder, but just not as loud.
Christ is born.
So she shouldn't be. I think you guys send direct outs. So yeah, so she won't hear that. So you're messing with it, she won't hear it that. On board on here for like the power user musicians, and again, maybe a later thing is there's some compression tools in here too. So you can compress an individual channel here. You can show it right here. So if I went to, this is separate, completely separate. So if I went to vocal 2, and you can say dynamics, right now it says none. So let me edit that. EQ, and it says if you change this, everyone that's using in-ears will hear the change, which is fine because you probably want it to sound nice. I want to compress it a little bit, so I'm gonna hit continue. And then there are some presets, so I'm gonna hit channel dynamic. Oh, so channel dynamics. So I can just do like medium or light. You can try, and then you just turn up this knob, how much of it, and you can hear it. It'll be like, it'll add that, like as I get louder, it doesn't get quite as loud. It just compresses it a little bit. So it's a simpler compression. It has all the settings, it's similar. All the settings are set at a preset of light, medium, heavy. And then as you do more, it'll compress it more. It basically lowers, this is lowering the threshold probably, but you're like increasing the knob to get more of it compressed. So they can do that in their ears too to kind of hear, be like, oh yeah, I want to control the volume a little bit too, so they can play around with these either. Because maybe I only need light compression when I'm hearing, I want to hear myself look here, just a little bit of that controlledness, so yeah. So that's on board here. I'm gonna turn that off for now. Yes, okay. Good question, yes. Right, okay, so I'll try to explain this. So like the sound is coming through all of this processing, right? So at some point, just the raw audio, after the EQ, okay? Let me show you this home screen really quick. So let's look at this channel strip. This is actually kind of nice. So like sound is coming in here. We did the gain, right? So sound is coming in here. This is the level that it's coming in. Cool, like right around that, right where green almost turns to yellow, right there. If we have a gate activated, it goes through a gate. It's not activated for her vocal. Then it goes through an EQ, so we're shaping that frequency. So maybe, and then it's going through the dynamics, right? And then after that, it goes through some other stuff, and then you have a fader right here. Yep, and then it's output. So I'm adding level before I even get to the fader. So that's what's happening, right? So if I just use the fader, then I have to ride the fader myself. When I have to anticipate when she gets louder, bring it down 6 dBs, right? And maybe not even. Sometimes I only want to bring it down 3 dBs. You know, like that's what's happening. Yeah, go ahead. No, you cannot. So the gain, let's look at the compressor again. So this gain is called, it doesn't say here, but it's called output gain of the compressor. So like there's this unit, there's like this little thing in there, and it's like it's running through the processing of the compressor, and then the last thing in the compressor is like, do you want to boost, or do you want to boost what comes out of the compressor? Yeah. So it's out of the compressor is like lifting the volume. Yes. Yes. In harmonies, yeah. So okay. So one thing is, for like church live music, I'm generally not too worried about it if they're like kind of even, like as long. But I will mess with but the compressors will help in general first, right? Because like maybe they sing a little quieter for a harmony. I usually do. Like if you sing harmony, sing just a little quieter. You like self-mixing. But then the compressor's lifting it a little bit, so it's kind of bringing that presence. So same thing, you're compressing them, so that volume of the harmony hopefully still sits there. If they sing a little too hard, maybe a little too, it's also helping you out already too, so that maybe it's not quite as like wow, it's all harmony now, right, and no melody. Some things you can't fix without writing the faders, or again, like this is where I work with musicians, like, hey, like actually I've done it. I was like, hey, can you maybe lighten up on the harmony, just volume? Like, because I hear it sounds good, but it's like overpowering. It's like maybe like musicianship helps. Like self-mixing is what I call it for the band too. So sometimes that helps. Again, like gently, like say that. Or if it's not a huge trouble, it's like, okay, I might have, so let's look here. Like if he's singing harmony and I wanted to ride the fader just a little bit, I might just like dip it down a little bit because I don't have full control of like an individual one, so I might just like tap it down a little bit. But it should be very minor because your compressor is gonna be helping you already a little bit with that. Yeah. But so a lot of times like I don't have to touch it, or if I do, again, like that's why I say it's just a very minor, it's like, oh, it's just a little too loud, and then I just like dip it down, and I know he's gonna lead the next song, so I bring it back up a little bit, just a little bit, yeah. But compressors will help a lot with that, because that extra 6 dBs is actually pretty significant, so. All right, so let's try compressing him too. Actually, does he sing in this song? Let's go this way.
With fears unspoken, wisdom of your plan.
Oh, this is the vocal 3. Let's go. Right. So let's compress leader. So we're looking at his compressor now. So another tip is, if you're like looking for a compression spot to pick, while they're singing normal, it's like barely reducing the volume. You see that? Where it's just kind of touching compression like when he was starting. Let's back it up just a little bit. And back to the beginning of that song really quick. So you can see the gain reduction here. When I'm viewing the compressor, it's just lightly touching gain reduction. Right there, just like maybe a little bit, right? So like I'm basically on the, what do you call it? I'm just barely at the threshold, right? So I'm like, when he's singing normal. Then I know when he lifts his volume, it's gonna compress. So I'm gonna bring this up 6 dBs. Change the I'm gonna do the same thing, just use the same settings. Attack 10 milliseconds and ratio 3. So we'll do that. And then, let's do that. So now he's lifted it again, and we'll bring up the sound. Probably should have EQ'd him a little bit, but I'll do that too. again, like I can hear him throughout all of this, right? It's a little less, I would say, muddy, right? It's just his vocals a little clearer. Just take away a little bit of those low mids. Same thing, same kind of approach as the other vocal. So then it just feels a little cleaner in the mix, and I can push up the volume and kind of let it sit there. Yeah. That's a general strategy there for vocals to kind of let them sit, and then we'll take a look at some of these instruments too. Let's just back it up a little bit.
We rest within the storm of your prayer.
Acoustic, I'm gonna just go ahead and lower this, and just let it see what it sounds like without a boost. So acoustic guitar, notoriously, I'm gonna say, it's pretty quiet in a mix, but like you can hear it right here in this quiet passage, but we don't, let's back it up. That was nice. That was a nice spot.
Your perfect love and favor have no ends.
And what we can do too, I don't know if you have different players for acoustics, if you have different players for acoustic guitar, if you want their picking to come out, but then you don't want their strumming to overpower. Like I was watching, who's playing guitar today? Michael, very light strummer, pretty consistent. So like that's pretty easy to mix, to be honest, because you're like, oh, it's very consistent sounding, but you might get a heavier strummer. Like when they get going, it's like a little heavier, but then they also still pick on like quieter passages, and you want both of those to come out. That's a perfect opportunity to use a compressor. So you can lift that quiet stuff and compress the strumming. So for a guitar, I might leave it at, like acoustic guitar, I might leave it at 4, and then lower that tag. Again, well, I'll give him some, and then I might make the release a little bit longer for a guitar. And then same thing, and for guitars, I'll play with the gain a little bit, but I start at 6 and do the same technique. Just, boost those quiet picking to 6 dB so that maybe I can hear that a little clearer on those softer passages, and then, but it compresses like heavy strumming. About 6 dBs. Like you don't want to squash it so it looks like this. Like we can listen to what the guitar sounds like. Right? Just get the scratching, which is it's like super compressed. But yeah. But you can hear that light picking. It's a little clearer. I wouldn't bring it this high, but just to hear what it sounds like. So a compressor can help you for acoustic guitars too. That's generally my strategy. I mean, I could build the entire mix and we can do that. When it decides to play there. I like the mid stuff, I'm gonna just bring this lower stuff. That way it doesn't conflict too much with the basses or something like that too. And here I'm looking at the bass. I might not have to do too much, to be honest, because it's just coming what it's playing. Again, remember we talked about low frequency, not a lot of players there. As I'm listening, I'm just making sure I can hear the vocals. Like as I do things, I want to make sure I can still sing along. Like if I'm in the congregation, can I sing? If I didn't know the song, can I hear the melody and just kind of learn it, right, and sing along like this, so I can worship it. So that's always what I'm asking myself as I make adjustments. Like, oh, can I still hear the vocal? Again, I always say, if if I don't know the song, because especially going to new church, I'm like, I don't know this song. But today, I think there are a couple songs I didn't know, but it was clear. You guys did a good job. It was like, I can hear it and I can sing along. I learned it and it was good. That's what you want to be able to do. That's like the goal. Yeah. Yes. Yep.
In rhythm, obviously, you want to keep more subtle. But
Yeah.
if there's like a big lick you want to like
Mm-hmm.
boost that, how do you kind of EQ that when you have a compressor on?
Hi. Yeah. You electric guitarists are interesting. They have all their toys, right? So I generally try to trust them first. Like if they have boost pedals and they know when to like activate it. Like really, like that is like most electric guitarists like their toys, right? So and they have them. So like today I was like, it was really, I felt like he was like playing louder when it was, when he was playing the lead line. So that's why you're not compressing it hard. You're just like, hey, when they get to a super loud thing, it's just like right around, you want that compressor right around, the threshold right around where they're gonna start hitting it. That way if it gets out of control, then you kind of just mildly like get it. But then you let them like play that, yeah. Beat.
Setting at least the up end of that compression to anticipate that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As an electric guitarist, should we level or line check with the boost on, or?
I usually don't line check with the boost on. I usually line check. That's a good question. So I will line check their clean tone and a dirty tone, right? But sometimes boost is a little different because then sometimes like they can boost clean or boost dirty tone. But I'd like to generally level match like their clean tone and their dirty tone.
How many dB would you expect the boost to be?
I don't know, like 6. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It'll just cut, and then usually you're playing somewhere higher too. Like, so it's like natural, it's like double whammy, right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna play a little bit higher up on the neck, and it's also boosted. And nobody should be playing, right? It's like a solo or like a turnaround or something like that. Like, so you're not gonna mess with the singing. The singing is gone, right? So that's good, that's a good time to do something like that. Yeah.
6 dB is all I need.
Yeah. Cool. Trying to think let's talk about effects. You guys have any questions about that? All right, let's talk about effects because that would probably be the next thing on this list, right? So like, again, these are step-based things. As you're learning, I would say like, just get your gain right, get your volume, get your gain right. You have some low cut that cleans up the mix automatically. You have a little bit of gate, that would be the next, I'll gate some of these drums. That cleans up your mix, right? And then I just move the faders around in volume. And when we started, I was like, it still sounds good. Like you can hear, as long as maybe you can't turn something up as high, but you're like, make sure those vocals are still sitting on top, and then you have something, and people can worship, all right?
Can you talk about gates, compressor, and EQ for drums? I don't think you touched on any of that.
Gates, compressors, and EQs for drums. So yeah, we started talking about gates on drums. So let's take a look at this gate. Let's take a look at this kick. All right, I think he was playing pretty heavy here. So I don't think I can solo it, but let's turn these down. Okay, so let's just watch this gate like hitting this kick. So they're playing kick, and you can see that it's every time he hits the kick, it's going above the threshold, right? And let's lower these just for now. And like, how much other stuff do we hear? Like, not much. And as I listen to it, it's more preset stuff, but like it's clicking a little bit. So like, there's a little trick, just turn up the attack a little bit so that it doesn't click. So let's hear that click. It's a little funny sound. So I'm gonna raise the attack, and it kind of goes away, it just becomes more thumpy. And then I'm gonna bring up this release time so that it kind of like, the gate stays open a little bit longer so that it doesn't sound so short of a kick. So it has like a little bit of a tone to it, and then I can play around with it. I might bring this range too. All right, so I can move the threshold like this. If someone's very consistent and you're worried about bleed, you can bring I should show you what happens. If I bring the gate up too high, you won't hear it, or you barely hear it, because I've reduced it by 16 decibels, so you kind of hear it like whisper quiet. Right, and then if I really bring it here, you probably wouldn't hear it anymore, or very little. Again, very little. right? But then as I bring it down, then it's meeting that threshold. And again, like I'm listening to see if like, am I picking up anything else? And I'm not. So like I can be a little bit more maybe like, and this thing is a pretty clean mic. Hear a little bit of other stuff. So I just put it here. Cool, snare. Bring this down. And snare's a little tricky because you might have ghost notes or something like that. So I might, this one has a compression on it too. So I usually just do. Let's see, similar. Let's do faster attack. And then we can bring it up. I like it at extra 6 dB. So then your ghost notes are a little bit louder. And then the hard hits are a little bit controlled. So compression on the snare. It stopped, so let's bring it back. Here's the compressor off. Some of it is just louder, but there is a little bit of extension on the snare. It lasts a little longer. The hits kind of are held there. It's like a little bit fatter sounding versus it just dies. So that's what a compressor does too, because it makes it a little louder, but it holds it there for a little bit. And then toms. Toms, I don't honestly worry too much about compression because they don't hit them that much. So I'm just like, you can just hit your toms, and I'll hear them. But I want to make sure the gate is only letting the tom in. And let me see if I listen to this. There's very little stuff coming through it besides the tom when it hits, so you're good there. And then floor tom, same thing. We'll look at the gate. I mean, he's going on this one, so it's good. A little bit of cymbal in there, but it's not bad. It's hard hit cymbal, so you're like, it's just a little bit of bleed. Good there. All right, so that and hi-hats, I guess. Let's take a look at hi-hats. Maybe I'll check the compressor on the overheads too. Yeah. Just mild compression on the overheads. Like that. Yeah, that's probably fine. And then hi-hats. There's maybe no hi-hat action going on in here too much, but that's okay. Usually cymbals, they're so easy to hear. I don't know if you saw it, but they were pretty low in the mix because you can hear them. And then this is different from a recording too. Like if they're playing there and you can hear them, you're not really mixing truly for the PA for acoustic drums. You're like, you have the room, they're playing, so you're kind of blending the natural sound of it with a little bit of reinforcement. That's why usually the low end needs reinforcement. Like I want to feel the kick a little bit. The toms, like maybe those have a little bit of oomph to it. But like the snare has both high frequency and low frequency mixed in, and cymbals, so you can kind of hear that. So they might not be coming that loudly in the PA. Yeah. So you want so you like push a little bit in there, but you might not be like all you hear is like from the PA. Correct. You have it low, and that's what, I think you guys have a couple of other things to boost some drum things too. Like there's like a what is it called? Remote feeds, and you have like some bus mixes right here. Yeah, remote boost FX Sense. So like there's like a Cry Room Plus, Gym Plus, Video L Plus. If you select those, like the gym, I think you guys kind of generally have some of these boosted. So you can see like some of the drum channels are boosted in these because you might not have them in the house that loud. So then you boost them in for the remote feed. So that's how you guys have gotten around it, which is a really good trick. Yeah, that was great point. Cool. But if you're, let's see. Oh, dang. Here we go.
Christ is born. Christ is born. Christ is born for you.
All right, so let's quickly talk about some effects too. So I'll unmute this vocal reverb DCA here on the right. And you guys have 4 effects, it looks like. You have drum reverb, band reverb for like all the other instruments, vocal reverb, and vocal delay. All right. So with vocal reverb, so how, if you guys don't know how it works, it looks like you guys can just press this top row. Like, let's say I want to add some vocal reverb. If I hit this, it'll show me how much of any particular channel are being sent to the vocal reverb unit. So, we're good? Okay. So right here you can see like there's a little bit of vocal 1 and vocal 2 getting sent to the reverb here. Like these faders are up when this is activated. And if I uncheck it, it'll bring me back to the main mix. So like this is the LR mix right now. So if I wanted to, so if I want to check, it goes away. How much reverb is going into vocal 1, vocal 2, I can see that. And let's hear if there is anything going. Let's see, here we go. And I'll do some drastic stuff.
Oh, come, bitter and broken, come.
So if I push it up,
Fears unspoken, come.
so that's what you hear.
Taste of his
So this is with it nothing. This is what we call dry, and then wet when there's more. This is completely dry. So as we bring it up,
guilty and hiding ones. There is no need.
so generally what I do is like, this is by itself, so I can hear it pretty easily, and you might hear it right now already. But generally what I do is in the mix, when I do it, is I'll slowly bring up reverb when you're first starting. I just bring it up when it's like all mixing, and then when I start hearing it a little bit more obviously, I'll just turn it back down. Because then I know it's there, but it's not like overpowering in the mix. That's just the kind of the trick I use for when I start. Like if I just want it there so that I know it's not dry sounding. So, because when it's just dry, it's like in your face and it kind of feels a little out of place. So let's bring up all the stuff. So I'll start bringing it up until I hear some reverb.
His promise is peace for those
So like there, I start feeling like it's a little bit more obvious.
He's the Lamb who was given.
So I'll just turn it back down a little bit and I'll just let it sit there. And I'm like, it's probably good there. Yeah. That's just a quick way to add reverb to your mix.
Peace for those who believe.
Yeah, and because with it off, I guess if I turn this down, this isn't dry, what we were listening to, versus this.
He is the offering. Come, see what
Just a little
your
subtle.
God has done.
And this is to your taste. If you want more, I think I would just say generally speaking, like slower songs with more space in it, you can add more reverb, and then faster songs, a lot of energy, maybe dial it down so it's not like all this stuff is happening in it. If that makes sense. Any questions about reverb? There's also a vocal delay. If you guys are into like adding vocal delay, there's also a tap tempo button here, so you can, if this song is like 1, 2, I might tap it like that, so then the delay is in time with the music. Yeah. And then you can add it. Let's add it in. Maybe back it up. And let's hear how it sounds.
Out of nothing come, he is the offering. Come, see what your God has done. Christ is born. Christ is born.
You hear it now.
Christ is born.
Nice quarter note delay right there. You can hear it, right? Really loud. Okay. You guys heard that? You guys heard that delay? Hey, I don't know if you heard it.
Christ is born.
So I'm gonna send.
For you.
Yeah, turn it back up.
God has done, has done. Christ is born.
All right, it's super obvious delay. So this one is like less is more a little bit. So you just kind of you might add it in a little bit underneath that vocal in time, and then like so if we have reverb and that, it makes it even fuller. So I might do that for like a super slow song. It has a little bit of space.
He's the Lamb who was given.
Any questions? For delay? Oh, okay. For like reverb and things like that? Yeah. So for, yeah, I actually am. So that's why this is what I would say, like, these are the things, after you've done the other stuff, maybe you start working on this. So yeah. So with reverb and delay, because they're like on different layers of things, like how do you find ways to use it quickly? So yes, this is more like, it becomes like, now you're doing things that they're not even doing, right? Like you're enhancing, at least in your mind, right? You're like, hey, maybe I'm gonna add this. I think it will make it sound a little bit better than just you coming out of the speakers. So yes, like delay, I will add that depending on the song, right? And so there are a couple things. There are quick ways to mute. Like I don't want delay for this next song, right? Instead of having to go and turn them down, there's a vocal delay mute button here on the bottom right. Here, like it says, got 1, 2, 3. So it's number 3 on these mute groups. So if I do this, like there will be no, so let's try that. Like,
Is born, Christ is born, Christ is born.
so it's a delay. And if I mute it, it will stop doing it, right? So if like the next song, I don't want this, I'm just gonna mute it. I can do that. And then maybe the following song is another slower song. Maybe I want to add that in again. And, or it's like, you know, I only want it for verse 1 when it's super quiet and then it's starting to build. I'm just going to turn off the delay from that point. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. So the easiest way, like right now it's set like if you tap, however you tap it, that's what it's going to delay, right? So you can tap it at the quarter note, right? So if you just tap 1, 2, that's what I had, right? But if you want an 8th note delay, then you just tap it double time, right? 1 and 2. If you tap it like that, it'll, can we play it? Let's just see here. Let's try it.
What has done, Christ is born, Christ is
I'm pushing the wrong one, sorry.
born, Christ is born for you.
I'm muted, sorry.
He's the Lamb who was
Quicker.
given,
And then you could do dotted eighths, right?
slain for our pardon. His promise is peace.
Right, and so let's lower that and see how it sits in there.
To believe he's the Lamb who was given, slain for our pardon. His promise.
You hear that extra echo there? And again, a lot of times in the mix of it, you don't hear it, and then like that gap, it's like, oh, it's there. And that's kind of what you want. It's like subtle, like it's not really getting in the way of the main part, and then there's a space, all that delay like sits there. And then another little trick is if you want to, you can send the delay into the reverb. Right? So then you can make the delay sound less harsh. It doesn't sound that harsh to begin with, but you can make it even less like, you can wash it out a little more. So to do that, you can, let me lower the volume really quick. So to do that, you would say, I'm gonna pick my vocal reverb, all right? And then I'm gonna send, so right now, like in vocal reverb, I'm sending Vox 2 into it, but I can send the delay into it. So I'm gonna go into aux in, and vocal delay, I'm gonna push vocal delay into my reverb. So right now I'm looking at my reverb mix and say, hey, the delay is gonna go in there too. So now the delay is reverberated. So we'll listen to that a little bit. Let's do that. Bring up the vocal.
Christ is born, Christ pardon, his promise is peace for those who believe. He's the
Yeah, so you can hear it, it's different. It's like a lot less, it's a lot more washy and stuff like that. So you can totally do that. And it's just a taste. You're trying to like not make it be like the upfront thing, but sometimes to do it is like you push it up, okay, I hear it. Turn it down and see if you hear it in little spots. You're like, yeah, it kind of sits in there, and you're like, that sounds cool. So that's how you do that reverb. And then again, quickly, I can mute the delay. This is a great part for delay. Listen.
Come, he is the offering. Come, see what your God has done. Christ
Yeah, it's beautiful. You get the trails right on the end. So it's beautiful. Yeah, cool. I mean, cool. That makes sense. Like that's how you add like reverb. You can kind of mix like reverb and delay. Great on the vocal and stuff. And it would be the similar concept with band. I just really quick for band reverb. I would say again, think about the instruments. So band reverb, we're talking about the green ones. So bass, acoustic. So generally, I don't reverb bass. Acoustic, you might add it if they don't have any of their own pedals. You might like mix that in to taste so it doesn't again sound so in your face. Keyboard, it just depends how much reverb like maybe they're putting in the mix. So you have to listen to that one. It's like, oh, they're adding the reverb from the Nord, right? Like there's a little knob there. And if they're adding all that reverb, it's like maybe I dial it down on my end. But if they don't add anything, it sounds too dry, you just push a little bit a keyboard into it. Electric guitar, again, notorious. They love their reverb. 5 reverbs, 4 delays, right? So maybe I won't put like reverb into the electric guitar into the band reverb, and same for that pad. It's already very like airy and washy, so I probably won't reverberate that. It's already very ambient and things like that. So I'd probably like have my band reverb starting here and then just listen. Do I need to add more for the acoustic and things like that? We can listen to that really quick. Let's see. So band reverb. So this is electric, right? So it's already pretty washy, you can hear it. If I added reverb to it, I mean, I could make it more ambient, I guess. Yeah. But I probably wouldn't. Acoustic, I put a ton right now. So you kind of just made it very sugary and nothing, not clear. So I just kind of add a little bit to tape. Nothing. And just a little bit here. Yeah, just to add a little bit in the mix. Cool. And then drum reverb. Let's take a look at that one on the drums. Mostly, I mean, like hi-hat skins, right? Like overhead again, like you can put it in. Probably won't hear too much of it because like they're a little bit more distant from the things it's picking up, the overhead mics. So like I might just be like, do I need it for the overheads? If the hi-hats seem too in your face, you can add a little bit to your hi-hats too. But definitely on the skins, listen to them. So they're toms and snare, like add that to taste. You know, again, certain songs might, you might like the sound of more reverb or less reverb. So especially that snare, you want it to sound super 80s or something, you know, you can do that. Cool, I think that's, so like that's like the effects and things like that. Again, a couple things like, remember you have mutes for your vocal reverb because I like from a distraction standpoint and people noticing that you hear me saying like I'm trying to hear it and then but not make it that noticeable. I want it there but not like up front, right? So when you know it's like approaching the end of the song, like I will mute like at the end. Like a lot of times they'll sing the last line. There's still a little bit of music, right? So right at that moment, I'll be like mute them, mute the reverb. Like so the reverb and the delay. Like just make sure those are muted. That way in case like they pray, they talk or something, right? Like sometimes they might say something, may cue in the next song verbally. They're not like reverberating or delaying while they're talking. And then as they do the intro, it's probably pretty safe. You hit that, turn it back on, and then they're on. So that's just an easy way to like minimize distractions there too, if you're using reverb and delay. Band reverb and like drum reverb, you don't need to really mute those, like because they might play along. Like they might play extended. You want that reverb as they like play out or play in somebody walking up the stage and stuff like that. Cool. I mean that's kind of like a mixing strategy. So it's like just as a review, like getting your gain right is like super important, and you want to set it in the beginning of rehearsal well. And learn about getting performance level. Like that's super important. And that again, like show yourselves grace. Like you'll learn, like, oh, that wasn't quite right, and just learn from it. And some people, like I've learned, some of my musicians, like even if I ask in rehearsal, I know they're gonna give me more on Sunday morning. And it's just like a certain amount. You might, and that's a learned thing, and that's okay too. Like if you can never get them to be on the line, but they're consistently like that, you might learn that about your musician too. And that's fine. So I might like cheat it a little bit low. And then knowing that they're going to sing a little bit, give me a little bit more. And that's fine. because it's pretty quick, like on a Sunday morning, and like if you know, like really quick, like look here. If you're playing a vocal thing, I'm gonna just show you here. Like if you just don't have your eyes on everything, right? And you just, again, one you might notice, you'll probably notice, you might notice it with your ears, but if you don't, let's say like vocal 2, right, was overly compressed. Like so I'm gonna lower this threshold, this compressor, and you just see this light always on, like even when it's quiet. Or you see it right here, this one too. This compressor is like, it has a meter, a gain reduction meter telling you like, hey, it's really compressed if you selected it. But even when it's not selected, you're like, that light is just always on, even when it's quiet. I might like, double check. Like, and I can hear it too, like maybe. Because it might be but it's like super compressed. So I might just check, then I can know, like, and then you can probably see it by the first song, they're like warmed up already, you're like, oh, okay. And it's usually not gonna be that drastic, but you'll like bring up the threshold. Yeah. Just in case like there's a disparity between rehearsal and like Sunday morning. But that's why I like to make it a one knob thing for each thing. It's really just a threshold that you're gonna adjust just to kind of fine tune it, and it's pretty quick. You just like, yeah.
Any questions?
Yes, more, yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So so the question is, if you are doing like a service that's not like Sunday service, like maybe fellowship, like during midweek, something like that, and you only have like an hour, right? You're coming after work, right? And you get an hour to like sound check and do all that stuff. I would probably, and so like what do you prioritize and do? So I would, again, like I would do line check, just make sure everyone's in, and then maybe I wouldn't, and then I would just get a level. Like that's my first thing. I would just get a level in, and a high pass filter, low cut filter. If you use another board, it might be called high pass filter, HPF. They're the same thing, but you low cut, because that's right there. It's like they're together. You got the preamp, and then you got the gain knob as a preamp, and then the low cut frequency. You want to just make sure like those are cleaned up for each thing, so that not too much low end from things that shouldn't have low end. And then I would just let them rehearse. Like then the band can rehearse, and then you have as much time that hour. So hopefully if your line check is like 10 minutes, like then you're going. Then you have like 40 minutes, a good 40 minutes, maybe take a break 10 minutes before, right? So you might have a good 40 minutes, like then I would do all that stuff in the 40 minutes. And I'll just step through as much as I can in that process. So volume, right? So just mixing, so see where I can get without doing any like extra processing. Likely, again, like you're bringing up likely saved scenes and things like that. Likely a lot of those things will work pretty good already. So like week to week, or like using that, you're gonna be in the ballpark. As long, again, gain though, like you're not sure. Like some people might be, it literally could be the same person. They're a little bit under the weather, just a little bit, right? Just they're coming off something a little bit. So like their gain, they might not give as a different amount. So that's why I'd still like to do a line check. Maybe somebody changed their guitar, right? Like I got a new guitar. It's like I'm playing. So you always want to do at least a line check, and then maybe you're like not doing gates and stuff like that, or maybe like you're just depending on like a week before. You slowly do those things like in that rehearsal. And then the next time you have it, in your scene, and it's generally in the right area. So I just work it up, and I just do volume, and then maybe I EQ, and then you're like, hey, it's the same person. It's like, oh, cool. Like, but generally vocals, I'm like, oh, it's generally in that area. Just as long as you do a low cut and maybe somewhere between 200 something hertz, 400, 600, somewhere there. Cut those things out. It already cleans it up. Because then if you have a bassist, it just gives them that room, and you're not like all low mids and stuff like that. And then your acoustic guitar is shimmering already. Like it always sounds really nice. So you just kind of let it sit there. Maybe, and then that's why, like I would sit and listen, and you're like, oh, I can't get it loud. Like maybe 1 week, like all the songs are just like gentle strumming. So cool, it sounded great. But then there's another time, like a player's like, oh, that week, it's a picker and a hard strummer. Then it's like, oh, this is an opportunity. Oh, maybe I'll set some compression on that, and then you work it up. And then your scene kind of just builds up. I've been encouraging him to save. There's a thing, there's a utility here. You can save, is it library? Yeah, there's a library, so it's library. So like, there's a preset library. So like, I encourage you guys to work on that. Like, you can just save like a generic male vocal channel strip. So it's like, okay, cool. And then I can recall that and have a starting point with like just a little bit of like, I wouldn't do it aggressive, just like, oh, I have the low cut, a little bit of low mid cuts there too, and then just start there. And then even the compressor settings are there too. It's like, okay, I have the timing all right, and then I just gotta move the threshold around, and then it's pretty quick. Yeah.
All right. I think we said we were going to end at 3. So we'll stop here. If anyone wants to stick around and hang out and ask questions or mess around with things,
Yeah.
we're here. But let's give Joe a hand for helping us out today. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
All right. Let me pray for us.